Howdy, folks. Happy 4th of July, all the way from Florida, America. This is episode 11 of my podcast, Hard Truth, Football Chairman, by Darren McAntony, titled Football Purgatory. It's been a month, I know. Backed by popular demand. I'm taking a piss here. I've been busy. I went away for a few days with the family. I apologise for not getting an episode up sooner. Quite a bit's happened since the last episode. We're going to cover a lot of it today. I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but today we're going to cover, obviously, a lot about football. We're going to talk EFL. We're going to talk about Liverpool, champions. Yay! We're going to talk about what's going on at the Posh. We're going to talk about coronavirus. We're going to talk about family bits and bobs. I'm going to talk about my hit list for 2021 because fuck 2020. I'm so sick of this year. I want it to end right now and move on to next year. And we might cover a little bit about politics because obviously there's a lot going on in the world right now. So a bit of a disclaimer, a bit of a warning. I know I can wind some people up. I might upset people with some of the views I have and some of the things I talk about in this podcast, but that's the beautiful thing about freedom of speech. We don't always have to agree. We don't always have to go with what each other says. But as long as we have respect and love for each other, I have no problem whatsoever. I get hammered every day on various social media settings. I get it good, I get it bad. But you know what? That's the world we live in. You put yourself out there, you get shot down. But that's why you put yourself out there and you have the courage and bravery of your convictions and to be true to yourself. And I've always been that person, and I hope many of you are as well. But I always say to people, keep it respectful as best you can. For those of you who can't keep it respectful, fuck you. That's always been my view on that. So hopefully enjoy the episode today. It's going to be a busy one. So much to talk about. And for all of you out there, obviously, it's now July, and I believe you're all open in the UK. I just want to send my love to you all. You're finally out. You're allowed to get haircuts. You're allowed to go out and get drunk in the pubs. Keep it safe, obviously. Not that I'm going to go the other way and start warning everyone about it, but I will say have as much fun as you can and do it in a safe environment. And I'm absolutely chuffed for everyone out there who's able to do the things I've been able to do for the last couple of months. So that is the world we are meant to live in. That's the way life is meant to be. And it's finally time to get on with life. We all have to start living again. So back after the break. Thank you. So let's talk briefly. Let's try and keep it brief. Let's talk about coronavirus, the pandemic. And it's a good time to talk about it because obviously the UK is finally open. So many people have died. We've seen the figures. 10 million worldwide have been infected. Over 500,000 have died. 25% of that has been here in America. We do have 360 million people living here, though. And now we're seeing true data and statistics. That's something I've always been screaming about from day one, that, you know, we need to know more. We need to be educated on this virus. We need to know who's the most vulnerable. We need to know who it attacks. We need to know, does it go after our children? We need to know all those things. And there's been so many mixed messages from day one. It's probably the most frustrating part of the whole thing. From the start, don't wear masks, it won't help, to suddenly now you have to wear masks and it's being politicized. And you then have people calling people out who don't wear masks and mask shaming people, to stay indoors, don't go outside, to it's safe to go outside. And possibly now with all the air conditioning in the states like Florida, it's more dangerous being inside than outside. And so on and so on and so on. It's driven everyone to the brink. And you, like me, have been stuck to TV screens, watching the news, the headlines, the various bloggers, the people on social media who are suddenly experts on pandemics. You have the people in one camp who don't want you to ever leave your house ever again. You have people in the other camp who want to live life, look after the vulnerable, see the statistics on mortality, can see the transparency of the whole pandemic and understand that we can't lock down our businesses and our lives forever. And we certainly can't keep our children from being educated or going to school. And from day one, for me, the biggest scandal of the whole coronavirus hasn't been about the mishandling of it in the media or the various world leaders who've run their countries their own way and locking people up or not locking people up. But the biggest scandal for me has been what we've done to our children. It's really clear now from the statistics that, you know, particularly under the age of 16, 17, there has been so few mortalities out of the millions and millions of cases of infected people from coronavirus. There have been some children who've unfortunately passed. There was one over here, but it turned out he was on dialysis. He was a very ill child, and it was an underlying condition. But perfectly healthy children, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that this virus does more damage than anything else. And you're seeing that. You can find that information out there for yourself before you all start want to scream at me. At the end of the day, Our kids have to go back to school. My kids are due back in school next month. I want them to go back to school normally. I don't want them to social distance. I don't want my children to have to wear a mask 8 hours a day. It's been shown that transmission from children is so low. We need to see the real data on it, because they've been saying out here, there's been over, I think, 60,000 children in YMCAs have been in childcare facilities since March. They've been open because of essential workers needing a place to put their children. And there's been no evidence of direct transmission from children to teachers or children to children. And they need to come out and put that data on all our screens. It needs to be on every news network to give parents the confidence to send their children back to school finally, to give teachers the confidence, particularly the ones who are under the age of 60, to be able to go and do their jobs. Because at the end of the day, having our children homeschooled is the worst thing that's happened in this pandemic. And I'm always going to stand by that. I don't care if you want to scream at me, have a go at me, call me a coronavirus truther, whatever you want to do. I'm telling you right now, my children need to be in school. And I have absolutely no worries about sending them to school. And that, for me, has been the biggest thing about this, not losing my football club season, not people, who've got ill with this virus, have recovered from this virus, the headlines, the therapies. I think we all realise, and we're starting to come to the realisation that for those under the age of 60, there's a 99.95% chance that you're going to survive the coronavirus. And I think once you see that stats and data, and I had this debate with someone the other day. Somebody the other day was trying to argue with me that he does believe only 10 million people worldwide out of 8 billion people have been infected with coronavirus. Everyone knows the truth is the figure's probably 11 to 12 times higher than that. And when you start taking the more, the guy was arguing that the mortality rate was 5%, and I was arguing actually it's more like 0.3, 0.4%. So this is the information we as people need to know. Sick of the constant coverage, whether it's coverage from the left, the right, the mainstream media. Data is data. Facts matter. I've always said that from day one. Facts matter. And the amount of people I've met, particularly younger people, who are so frightened by what they read in the news and want to stay indoors, even to this day, still don't want to go out. I have friends who are like that. They wear hazmat suits when they go out. If they want to go out for dinner or they want to go out for coffee. But the one thing I've seen is that the desire to live life is strong in so many. And I know Florida, the headlines have been horrendous here. Florida spikes, Florida's blown up, Florida's the worst place. There's 11,000 cases a day, there's 9,000 cases a day. But I go back to hospitalizations and mortality matter, facts matter, as opposed to looking at how many infected. The real key data here is back in March, the average age of infections was 63 years old, I believe. Today, as we stand now here in July, the average age of infections, I believe, has dropped below 35. And what they're showing is people under a certain age are less likely to go in and be hospitalized, which means there's less likely of mortality from coronavirus. So there's a lot of dumb people, young people out there who've been locked up for months. They've gone out, they've clubbed, they've partied. I was on holiday in Sarasota a couple of weeks ago with my family, and I said to my missus, we were at a pool beach club, and there was a bar on the beach, and I could see all the youngsters. There were people average age 19 to 22, large groups, large clusters. They're having a good time. These guys have been locked up for 2.5, 3 months. They've gone crazy. They've gone out there. Unfortunately, it spread like wildfire through the young community. And what they've done in Florida is they've rolled back clubs and bars. Probably sensible. They should have probably been the last businesses that open for a couple of months, because that's where most of the infections are going to come from. Restaurants, you still go out here. We were in Sarasota. People are wearing their masks outside. What was really great to see was the more older, particularly Sarasota and Florida, it's a real older generation that live down there. And when we were walking around the streets and going to restaurants, those older people who were like in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, you could see them. They had their masks on, they had gloves on. They're doing their bit. And that is the most vulnerable. And we've said it from day one. Those are the people we have to look after. So the whole coronavirus thing has driven lots of people mad. There are people, unfortunately, who have lost loved ones. There are people in the older generation who've gone into hospital and not come out. But here's the positive thing, and this is the good news. While we've been watching this for months and it's ravaged the older community, I think 50% of the deaths here in America were in care homes, which is the worst part of it, because from day one, we should have been looking after those places. We should have been putting the data out there to show anyone over the age of 65, 70, you have a 10, 20% chance of hospitalization, which could lead to a higher percentage chance of not coming out of hospital. So the good news is, beg your pardon, the therapies are better they're treating people with. That's why you're seeing the death rate plummet now, particularly here in America. I think the death rate has plummeted 90%, particularly this week, since back in March, April. You're seeing the vaccines around the world. They feel confident they're going to have them before the end of the year. I think hospitals now are more adept at how to handle it and deal with it. They're not sticking people on ventilators as quickly. They're coming up with steroids. They've got medication and therapies that they're using. Remdesivir is one big one they're using over here that seems to be very successful. And what really frustrates everyone, I guess, is the politicizing of it. It's like, if you don't wear a mask, you're in the red camp. If you do wear a mask, you're in the blue camp. It's the biggest load of bollocks. At the end of the day, and I said this to my dad yesterday, we had a coffee, and my dad's 70, and he's wearing his mask, and I'm wearing my mask. I said, look, if they come out and say, you have to wear a mask for the next 60 days, I have no problem with that. I've been wearing a mask since March when I've gone to the supermarket. I've been outdoors. I've been within 6, 7, 8 feet of somebody. I haven't done it for me. I haven't done it for kids. I've done it out of respect for the older generation. And I've always been of that mindset. I have no problem taking one for the team per se. And that's what we're doing. We're taking one for the team to look after the older generation. But the question I guess everyone's going to ask, and particularly the younger people who are now not really following those rules and going out and not wearing masks, and that's where the big transmission comes from, is I guess the question they're asking is, how long do they take one for the team? For a virus that they've got a 99.9% chance of surviving from, and they probably don't even realize they have it. So that's the controversial question. And I said it to my dad the other day, you're 70 and everyone's doing their best to look after your generation. And my dad said to me, look, if I have to lock up for the next 6 months until there's a vaccine, and it means my children can go back to their work, go back to their jobs, their businesses, my grandchildren can go back to school, I'm happy to do that, because I've lived a great life, and I don't want your generation or your children's generation losing their education, losing their businesses. And that was his own opinion on it. And I respect that opinion. If the roles were reversed and I was his age, I wouldn't want my children all grown up losing their companies, losing their jobs, losing their businesses. I wouldn't want my grandchildren losing their education, homeschooling, and getting depressed. You've seen suicides skyrocket through the roof. For anyone out there who's feeling low and feeling down, I've said this before, reach out, talk to someone, talk to me, whoever you want, you need help. It's been tough for all of us. I've always said I've had one of the strongest mental minds, I believe, throughout my life, through the good, the bad, the ugly. I've always tried to remain on a level where I live life really positively. I wake up with a spring in my step every day, and it's hit me hard. And it's come in waves, and that's incredible. I've never felt like that mentally in all my life, but I'll be really honest and transparent. It's the first time in 44 years things like that have affected me, and it has affected me. So God knows people who already had mental struggles, what they felt like through this whole lockdown. But all I'll say is get the help you need, because nobody should lose their lives or take their lives through something like this. And I feel we're coming out on the other side of it. I've said to my wife every time we drink, and we drink too much at the moment, I said to her the other day, if social media didn't exist, do you think lockdowns would have happened? Do you think that the panic porn, the scaremongering, everything that's happened the last 4.5, 5 months would have gone on if this was 2010 or 29 or, in the year 2000? I don't think it would have. I think social media has exasperated it, has made it worse, particularly for the younger people who follow social media. I think the news, I'm not having to go all journalists here, although it appears I always am. I'm only having to go with the journalists who take headlines from my podcast, try and sensationalize things, and try and have a go at me and make me out to be the bad guy. I fucking hate people who do that. I see through you. You're a poor reflection of your industry, and you should stop that shit. And that happened on one of my last podcasts. And like I said, at the end of the day, I'm a really honest and transparent person. Don't try and throw me under the bus for speaking clearly. But I just think that some media have enjoyed what's gone on, particularly here in America. The media here, because of the whole Trump phenomenon, the derangement syndrome when it comes to Donald Trump, they absolutely love the scaremongering that goes on. If you look at the headlines now, and I know they've flown over the Atlantic, those headlines, because I've had lots of people going, are you okay? I believe Florida's like a death zone. I believe there's like coronavirus everywhere. There's people dying everywhere. Well, all those headlines you've read, all those journalists that want to write about it while glorifying the New York governor, who's like the grandparent killer, and they want to have a go at Florida. Here's some data, because again, I always say facts matter. Florida's got 22 million people. It's one of the busiest states in America. At any given year with Disney and all the theme parks, we have up to 60 million visitors here. Since March, Florida has had under 4,000 deaths in 5 months. Okay, there's over 200,000 people who are infected with coronavirus. But the one good thing Florida did was it looked after the vulnerable population. It went into all the care homes. It did the testing. It made sure those people, it didn't spread like wildfire. It sent the National Guard in to look after them. And we've done things in a really responsible manner. And people want to constantly dig out the governor here in Florida. It's very unfair, because the measures he put in place actually brought that mortality rate down and saved thousands of lives. So as much as Florida's spiking and there's infections and we're testing more than ever, I think we're doing 60, 70,000 tests a day. And unfortunately, infection rates at about 12% at the moment. Now at the clubs and bars closed, restaurants are still open, everything else is still open. I think you're going to see it come down. You're also probably going to see a certain herd immunity amongst the younger generation here in Florida, because the average age is, I think, under 35 of those getting infected. And hopefully it will die down in the next 4 or 5 weeks and people will stop talking about Florida. But because of all these spikes in all these different southern states in America, we're banned from Europe, we're banned from the rest of the world. Everyone says America is like the worst place for coronavirus. And while everyone throws that at me, I always say, yeah, what's the mortality rate in America? We have 330 million people living here. Sadly, we've lost 130,000 people. 50% of those were in care homes. The average age of people who've died here in Florida, I believe, reading the last statistic, 87% of those deaths were over the age of 75. Facts matter. Data matters. Statistics matter, particularly when people are making decisions about your career, about your children's education. So I'm hoping Florida comes through this. I'm hoping America comes through this. More than anything else, I wish 2020 was over, because nothing good's happened this year for any of us, really. I don't care who you are. And that's my talk about coronavirus. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to take a little break. Obviously, people who have different opinions, I'm always happy to debate, happy to take your emails, happy to take your social media tweets. I'll be back after the break. For those of you out there, as we've said through since March, stay safe. Look after those most vulnerable to you. For those of you who are most vulnerable and been locked up for so long on your own, I think as much as you're seeing infection everywhere and what's going on, particularly in America, I think the battle's going to be won. I think there are good days ahead. There are more therapies more than ever now, which reduces hospitalization times. I think there's more vaccines in play than ever before. And I think before Christmas, hopefully we'll all have the best Christmas present ever, and we can get on with our lives again fully in 2021. Back after the break, guys. Welcome back, everyone. Before I start getting into the football, and this could be a long old segment, I just wanted to bring your attention to the podcast. I've activated a donation button on the podcast. For those of you who enjoy listening, those of you who want it to continue, feel free to make a small donation. It's not that I need the money, it's just I need the justification to keep going. I already have the rankings. I'm usually top 5 in the football podcasts in Britain, and that's great and that's wonderful. But I am that guy. I'm a capitalist. I like to see my time is worth it. I like to see people are appreciative of the podcast itself. I'm going to give a large percentage to charity anyway, no matter who donates or what's donated. But again, it backs up the feeling that the podcast is enjoyed. It's widespread, enjoyed by people who listen to it and they want it to continue. And if you do that and you make some donations, you know what? I'll keep going. I'll come up with a new series. I'll come up with different podcasts. I'll do podcasts on business, and I'll do podcasts just on sports and life. So that's my little message, not a begging message. Just if you can afford a $5 or whatever else every month, or a few quid, I can be your new Netflix obsession, so you can get the episodes every week. So on to sports, on to football. Bittersweet. Premier League's back, the Championship's back. I've never watched so much football. I've been overdosing on football probably the last 3-4 weeks. I enjoyed watching Liverpool win the title. That was phenomenal. Didn't enjoy watching them get tanked by Man City the other night. I've just watched Man United destroy Bournemouth. Tell you right now, Man United is going to be some team next year. I know all their fans are like harping on about signing Sancho, but I think they signed a good left back and they're going to be a title-winning competitor. Chelsea are going to be strong next year, and Man City are definitely going to be strong. I worry about Liverpool, and I know I sound like a cynical Liverpool fan, but they've just been phenomenal. That's standard, and from that first 11, what he's got from them, Jurgen Klopp's a miracle worker. I was dubious early on, but from the results he's got from that team, phenomenal stuff. But I'll tell you right now, if they can't compete to sign strikers like Warner, who went to Chelsea, if they can't bring in some creativity, if they can't bring in proper backup to the front three, and yes, we know Origi did what he did in the Champions League and everything else, but please, he ain't going to be displacing Firmino when he has a bad few games. If Sadio Mane got injured for a month, or Salah goes to the Nations Cup for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we ain't winning a league title. So the owners of Liverpool have got some work on their hands, because after spending, I think, less than £1 million last summer, they're going to have to spend a few quid if they really want to have a go at going double dipping and getting another title. So let's talk EFL. I've really enjoyed watching the Championship. I've become a bit of a Brentford fan. Really enjoyed watching their games, their front three. I kind of had an outside inkling they were going to possibly come back on fire, because you're going to have a lot of tired legs and defenders who haven't played for like 3 months, and you're facing a front three as good as anybody. I've just seen the highlights of their game today where they won 3-0. And again, good luck to them, because what a story that would be for Brentford to get to the Premier League, for Matthew Benham and everyone involved, and with a new stadium on the rise. And it's a fairy tale story. It's a Cinderella story, Cinderella Man story, and I love things like that. Regards Peterborough United, the EFL, the playoffs are on. Congrats to the Cobblers. That's good for gate money next year. Hopefully with crowds back, we should make a few quid off that. Good old derby, good old rivalry. Happy to see that. I didn't see any of the games. I just saw, obviously, all on social media when they won. I did watch my first League One playoff game yesterday with Portsmouth, because we have a 6-figure little lump sum on Burgee if Portsmouth by some chance happen to go up. And obviously, as I said before, I'm really appreciative of Portsmouth. I know they voted to play on, and they're really the only team in the playoffs I wanted to watch. So last night, obviously, Wickham, I think they tanked Fleetwood. Probably a surprise to Fleetwood when they were looking at the votes and who they were going to end up playing. They probably thought, well, Wickham's probably an easier route. And looks like that might have backfired. And there's going to be a lot of work for them to do in the second leg. But Fleetwood are a good team, so don't be surprised if they won that second leg 4-0. I had a lot of Wickham fans on my Twitter feed last night. Very quiet for a couple of weeks. And then by caramba, out they come last night. I'm having a few drinks with the missus and my phone's just blowing up non-stop. It's either Rotherham fans, it's Wickham fans. It's just non-stop. I can't believe it. You've just won a great game. You're in the playoffs. You're a couple of games from getting to the championship, and you're on my social media feed like within an hour of winning a game of football. I guess that says a lot more about you than me as fans. But back to us, Peterborough United. What have we done the last few weeks, and what are we doing? We're planning. And I said the word football purgatory. That's in the title. And I guess we're going to come out of football purgatory soon, hopefully. But what that means is we're kind of in no man's land. We can't train, we can't play, we don't know when our new season's going to start, we can't sell players, we can't sign players, the transfer window date hasn't been decided. There's so much shit up in the air, it frustrates the living crap out of me. You own a football club, I've said it before, your main product is football. So what we've done as a club, as you know, we're running a skeleton crew who are doing an unbelievable job at the football club, from commercial to running the shop, to the finances of the club, to behind the scenes. And a big shout out there for people like Chris Brewer, for Liz, for Dawn, for Alex, and anyone else I've forgotten who's basically working behind the scenes to keep the football club churning and running. What we've done as a club, as a family club, is unbelievable. Our fans, over 25% of them have donated to the academy the money they were owed for the games that never finished last season, that was unjustly voted and taken away from us. Our commercial figures are through the roof. They're up 20% on last year. And we obviously got hit by a few sponsors and a few people who wanted refunds and rebates. As I predicted a few podcast episodes ago, we had a run on people from season ticket money, we had sponsors, not all of them, but we had things we had to fix. So we've put our club in a really, really good position where hopefully all our staff will be out of furlough by August. Hopefully we'll be building up to a new season. Our players are due back on the 20th of July. If the 12th of September is the start date for a new season. If it's earlier than that, we'll bring them back earlier than that. So we're planning to succeed as usual, as opposed to planning to fail. We have no desire to be one of those clubs who doesn't want to play football, or who wants to hibernate, who basically doesn't want to do what they're paid to do. We want to play, whether that's with crowds or without crowds. We want to get back to playing and do what we do and love best. Our players haven't played for nearly 5 months. By the time they get back, it'll be nearly 6 months without kicking a football. So my manager every day, he pops down the training ground, he's ringing me. The grass is beautiful, everything looks glorious. And I could hear it in his voice, the frustration, the sorrow, not the depression, but I could just tell it was getting him down. So myself, my partners last week spoke, we came up with a plan. I said, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we take our 10 players, 20 and under, anywhere from 17 to 20 that are in the first team squad next year. Why don't we unfurl them? Why don't we look at the testing course? Why don't we bring them back? Why don't we let the gaffer, his sports scientist, his physiotherapist, his head of youth come in, a couple of other people around the training ground, and let's let them train for a couple of weeks before the main first team squad come back. And the reason we looked at that was, A, it would be great to get our youngsters an extra couple of weeks with the manager one-on-one. That time invested could pay off big time next season. Your Rickies of the world, your Harrisons, your Barkers, your Cartwrights, your Flynn Clarks of the world. These youngsters have got serious talent. The one thing they don't get when they're in a normal squad training position with 25 people out there is they don't get enough attention off maybe the manager. So I said to the gaffer, how would you feel bringing these boys back a couple of weeks early? It's going to cost us probably 50, 60 grand to do it, but it'll get you back out in the grass. It'll let you do what you love doing. It will let you spend more time with these youngsters. You can see their strengths, their weaknesses, the physicalities, what needs to improve. He loved it. So myself, Jason and Randy decided, let's do it. I got on to Liz. We signed up for the testing program. Yesterday, 10 of them did their test. The staff did the testing. We're waiting the results today. Monday, they start officially. I think they test again on Monday. And unfortunately, throughout this whole fucking nightmare, we're going to have to pay for testing twice a week for those players. The plan long term, hopefully by August comes around, is testing is a thing of the past. And anybody with symptoms would stay at home because football clubs can't afford to keep testing. And not for the ridiculous cost. It's costing us, I think, $7,000 a week to do the testing twice. We can't do that as football clubs next season, nor should we have to. So we're really excited. As of Monday, we're back in business. The training ground is going to look like a training ground again, instead of looking like a zombie apocalypse with nobody there. And that's who we are as a football club. We believe in our younger generation. We believe they're going to play a big part in our title challenge next year, amalgamated and mixed in with our already very, very good squad. We've already drawn up our transfer plans. We will be releasing, I think it is next week, a list of the players on the list. We'll be putting the retained list out. We're already having conversations with players we want to sign, players that we want to sell. All of that's ongoing. The one thing we don't have is a proper official date for when the transfer window opens. But we're going to be strong. We're going to have a strong squad. We're going to be in good shape. We're going to get through these bumps. There's going to be a couple of shitty months ahead financially. We'll get through that too. Myself and my partners are in on that. We know what it's going to take. We're putting the plans back in place again to buy the stadium, to do the land for the new stadium. So we've got our head around a place where we want to be positive. We want to make positive, aggressive steps to make our football club better. And we feel we need to get promotion to the championship. So we're going to do our bit and do everything we can. We're going to try and put the season that's just happened behind us as a shit moment in our history, use the injustice to drive us on. Some people are going to pull headlines from that and start writing stuff like some local journalists have done about, Peterborough United blame this club and that club. I'm past all of that. I'm past the blame game. It's no moaning from me. It's no bitter tears. I know what we have to do. But I wrote a letter to Rick Parry a couple of weeks ago, and I was really strong in the letter I wrote to Rick, how I felt it was all handled at the end of last season that's still playing out, the unjust side of it all, the injustice of the vote, my feelings on how the EFL handled it and how they should have handled it. And I said, look, I'm putting that to a side now, and I'm moving on. And here's what I want to hear from you. Have you done a deal with a PFA to reduce wages next year? Because if you haven't, why not? That's an important question. I think all football clubs need to get the PFA around the table. I think all players realise with the thousands of people who are going to be unemployed that there has to be a pay cut for all professional footballers at the lower level for the next year or two. I'm suggesting a 20% pay cut, but you get an extra year's contract. So yes, it's not nice. You're going to take a pay cut, but everyone has to feel the pain of what's coming in football. They have to understand what their football clubs are dealing with. You don't want to see too many more Wiggins. You don't want to see clubs go into administration. And worse still, you don't want to see clubs go into liquidation either. Everyone showed with their vote. They were worried about the finances involved, some of them anyway. So what I'm saying is we collectively need to do a deal with the PFA. That in turn will help the PFA because those 1,000 odd employed footballers who are unemployed, clubs will be able to go and sign them in the summer. So some players are just going to have to take a hit. That's just the way it is. I'm suggesting if you earn a certain figure, you're going to have to take a pay cut. It's for a 1 year period, but you get an extra year's contract if you agree to sign to it. So that's something players are going to have to think about. They're going to have to think about the long-term health of their clubs and the industry itself. The other question I said to Rick Parry was, have you found cheaper testing? Because to be paying the amount of money we're paying for testing right now, 5 months into coronavirus, when there's a million companies who've got testing going on out there, there is no way football clubs should be paying $7-8 grand a week for testing, which works out at like 120 quid a person. You should be able to get testing in place now at like 30-40 quid. They come in, they test, you get your results the next day. Please tell me where the cost justifies paying nearly £120 per test. We already know that there's widespread testing available. We're not taking testing away from the normal person who's an essential worker or someone at the NHS or Joe Blogs in the street. This is a sports industry. It's been decided we're going back to work. So if we have to continue to test when we get back playing in August, can we get it cheaper? Because it needs to be cheaper. Is the EFL doing a deal on that? My next question, have you done a bailout package with Premier League or anyone else to get money to clubs for July and August? We're now in July. So it's for August and September to pay all the backlog of bills like PAYE, the VAT, all those issues that we knew were going to fall on our shoulders, once the end of July came. What else did I put in there? Are you going to go down the same route and try and make this a democratic vote and when the season starts again? Or are you going to take the bull by the horns, show some stones and tell everybody you're reporting back to play your first set of fixtures for the new season on the 29th of August and the 12th of September? So that was the email I sent him. It was long, it was polite, it was factual. I just wanted answers. He gave me his answers. I won't go into them now. That was private between me and him. We then had an EFL meeting yesterday, and right now it looks like it's either going to be the 29th of August or the 12th of September. They're the two dates. It was made clear to all football clubs, if we don't get back to playing, we're going to put our TV deals in jeopardy. We're going to put the cup deals in jeopardy, which bring in 30% of our revenue. There were a couple of dissenting voices, the usual, about not wanting to play without crowds. The EFL is working with the government and the authorities on what percentage crowds we can get back in September. We feel very confident. We don't know if it's going to be 20%, 25, 30%. But I've said this to all posh fan season ticket holders. If you buy a season ticket and say we sell 4,000, and due to our capacity percentage allows us to have 4,000 people in the stadium, you will be the ones who get your seat in the stadium back, whether it's spread out or you're 10 seats away from someone else, or you're sat with your family or your bubble, you will get the priority. Most football clubs will be the same. For those of you who are waiting to buy a season ticket, my advice would be, when the news comes out and they do announce football with fans, because they're going to have to, and everyone realizes we're going that way, and you haven't bought a season ticket, you might want to jump in and do it now. That would be my advice to anyone who's waiting and sitting on the fence. If you can afford to buy a season ticket, go and buy one. It's pretty much going to nearly guarantee you to go and see your football club play again. So they're going to be in high demand. You never usually say that in League One, but I would say most clubs will be in the same position. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to start with like 25, 30%. I think before Christmas we'll go up to 50%. And if I was a betting man, by January, we'd be back to 100% crowds. Because I just think, like I said in my previous segment, there's so many good things coming now as regards to the mitigation with coronavirus. The mortality rates are dropping. We're now realizing that, when you look at the real mortality rates now, it's more like 0.4%. So people are realizing we can't live a life like this forever. We can't social distance forever. And we certainly can't have football games without crowds forever. But in the event we start without crowds, we just got to get the party started. And those people out there dissenting about that who own football clubs, I hear you, I understand you, but at the end of the day, I own a football club. I want to give football to my fans, whether it's in person, whether it's watching by iFollow. I'll always stand by that. So that wraps it up on football. There's nothing else exciting going on at Peterborough at the moment. We're having a big launch on Sunday for the new shirt. We've signed a deal with Puma. We're really excited about that. It's the best deal we've ever signed. The first 100 season ticket buyers, I believe, got an invite. I'm going to be hosting the event with the manager. I think Sam Edwards is going to be the questionnaire, and we're going to obviously show off the new kit, and that will excite everyone. And then we're going to see how the kit sells. But I'm starting to get excited again. Our plan right now is, if the season's the 12th of September, all the first team squad will be back by the 20th of July. The football club will be back full on August the 1st. We're going to get into training. We're hopefully going to plan a pre-season trip to either Spain or Portugal, health permitting and coronavirus restrictions permitting. We're going to get over there probably at the end of August. We're going to play some pre-season friendlies, and then we're going to be ready to go on the 12th. I personally feel it'll be the 12th of September if I'm the betting man. Hopefully those decisions will be made in the next couple of days. I know there's some other decisions that have to be made on financial fair play and salary caps and all that's going on at the moment. So I think we're close. As much as we're enjoying watching the Premier League and the Championship, I do miss League One football, proper football. I miss watching my football club. So hold on a little bit longer. Thank you for your patience. I think some good news is coming. I'll be back after the break, and we're going to get into some politics. So my advice to you is, if you don't fancy listening, tune out. Or maybe I'll scrap the politics segment. We'll see. Let's see what happens after the break. So welcome back. Quick thing, by the way, before we get into the whole politics and whatever else. I mentioned before about the donation things. If anyone else out there is looking for sponsorship packages, there are some available from my podcast. Contact me at realdarrenmcanthony@gmail.com and let's speak. Obviously, I've got a wide audience. I've got an audience with a good demographic of young, middle and old. And if you're looking to endorse or sponsor your company, happy to do a package with you. So on to politics. And it's a really, really tricky subject because the world is just inflamed with politics at the moment, particularly in America. It's the pro-Trump, it's the anti-Trump, it's you're a Republican, you're a Democrat. I guess the UK went through a lot of this when it was the general election with Labour, Conservatives. 2020 has just brought everything, never mind coronavirus, pandemics, it's just brought everything to the forefront. And obviously the big talking subject at the moment, and rightly so, is racism. And that's a constant theme at the moment. You're seeing through protests, and unfortunately you're seeing rioting and looting and things that we don't want to see. I'm one of those people. I'm happy for people to protest. It's their right, particularly over here, it's their constitutional right, as long as it's done peacefully. Unfortunately, you've got a few bad actors in there who have made it worse. People have died, things have happened, and none of us want to see. Those of us who believe in law and order and believe in basically the fundamental rights of police protection, when you see some of the stuff going on, it's horrific. But just so you're clear from where I am, because I get accused of being, whether it's you're a Trump fan or you're on the right and blah, 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 blah. I've never been in my life massively political. It's never really interested me. It's never been something that's like tick the box. I've never been like actively going out to vote one way or another. I just want people to know who I am. I'm going to run through some of the things I believe in, and you can agree or disagree. What do I believe in? What are my fundamental beliefs in life and the way I live? I believe in equality for all. Always have, always will. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in religious freedom. I'm pro-life. I believe in free markets. I believe in capitalism. I believe in people who are born with nothing, who pull themselves up from their bootstraps and go out and make a success of their life. I believe in less business regulations. I'm pro-business. There's nothing better to me than seeing a story of somebody who starts out from the ground up and builds a successful business and employs lots of people. They're all the things I believe in. What do I not believe? I believe in law and order. What do I not believe in? I don't believe in socialism. I don't believe in radicalizations of anything. I don't believe in rioting and looting. I don't believe in police brutality. I don't believe in some of the things that we see going on today. And I certainly don't believe in the cancel culture and the doxing culture. I hate that. More and more people nowadays are frightened to give their opinion. And particularly if it's a level-headed opinion, because if they give it, they're going to come out and get cancelled. They're going to get doxed. I don't believe in pulling people's Twitter feeds or social media feeds up from 10 years ago or 9 years ago, or things people said 10, 15 years ago, and cancelling those people for the opinions they had at a certain place in time. And I speak to my wife about this all the time. What your beliefs were 10 years ago or the way you acted 10 years ago might have been concurrent with the way life was and society was at that time. I'm not talking about necessarily racism or things people have said, but when you see some of the shit going on nowadays, it frightens people from speaking. You're seeing people who are actors or sports players who, when they were 15 years old, made stupid tweets, social media posts. And now you got people, particularly on the left, pulling up that shit, putting it out there, and basically trying to dox them and cancel those people. You're seeing people losing their jobs over it. You're seeing people basically get completely cancelled with no chance of ever getting a job again for stuff they said years ago. Point in case the other day, there was I think somebody who worked at Boeing 35 years ago, he had an opinion on women in the military. Somebody found it, a far left journalist, they pulled it up, it was printed, he's lost his job. Those beliefs he had 35 years ago might not be the same beliefs as we have today. The beautiful thing about life is that with freedom of speech and freedom of belief, your beliefs can change. Where you stood on one subject 10 years ago could be completely where you stand today. That's called growing, that's called maturing. And it's horrible, but I have to say to my kids are like 14, 13, and 11, please don't post anything on social media, okay? Please don't post stuff or retweet or like something that a college in 5 years' time can look at your social media history and judge you based on politics, or judge you based on something stupid you've said, or judge you based on favouring or liking some stupid joke that, while it seems appropriate today, in 5 years' time might be inappropriate. You don't want to lose your career or your life from the age of 14 doing something now that could come up against you in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years' time. Because unfortunately, that is the society we live in today. And that's a horrible way to live. And it's a horrible society to live in. The cancelling culture, the doxing. I got in a row the other day with someone on Twitter. And I've got to be careful because I own a football club. I'm in the public eye. I say something stupid or I say something on social media. You'll have a fan, you'll have social media. I've had people do it in the past, report me for saying something. I wasn't trying to say something that was full of hatred. I wasn't trying to say something that promoted hatred. It could be something completely innocuous and stupid, and I'm getting pulled up on it. No problem. Forget about apologizing, because nobody should apologize for something they did when they were 14 or 15 or 16 years old. Okay? And there's far too much apologizing going on all of the time. At the end of the day, hold your hand up, and all you have to say is there was a moment in time where that was appropriate, and today not so appropriate. So I'll educate myself, I'll learn, I'll move on. I got in this debate with a guy the other day because the guy who runs Barstool Sports, how can I describe Barstool Sports over here? It's like a media company that puts loads of stupid posts up. It's almost like a comedic thing. They're full of comedians and idiots who post things, who say things. A lot of it's controversial. It's worked very successful for them. They've got millions and millions of followers. They were sold, I think, last year for $1 billion. The guy who runs it had made some really, really, probably a few years ago, controversial comments. That you would look at today and go, geez, in the current environment we're living in, those things probably aren't the most appropriate things to say. Somebody and everyone tried to cancel him. And fair play to him. He came out and he fronted it. And he said, "You're not cancelling me, okay? And nor am I apologising for what I said 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. This is what we do. This is who we are. If you take us serious on the stuff we say, more fool you. But you're not cancelling me." And he fronted it. And he's a very popular guy, and a lot of people liked it. And I liked his video because I liked his balls. I liked the fact he was honest and transparent about it. I liked the fact he wasn't apologising for something he said 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and he was getting on with life. And straight away, he's a football fan living in America, tried to call me out on Twitter. You're supporting someone who believes in rape. You're supporting someone who's a racist. You're supporting somebody who talked about various subjects. And I said, no, I respect his right for what he said. Just like there are comedians I've gone to see. I've seen Eddie Murphy. I've seen Chris Rock. I've seen lots of great comedians, Jerry Seinfeld. I saw them years ago. I watched Eddie Murphy Raw. Everyone's seen that. If you see some of the stuff comedians have said over the years, and you look at today and the society we live in today, the stuff they said is completely inappropriate, but it doesn't mean they should be cancelled. It doesn't mean they have to apologise. It doesn't mean they should be erased. That's just something they learn from, and I'm sure the material today is more in line with today's beliefs. It's more in line with today's culture. So that's what I meant by that. And that's something that really pisses me off with today's politics, is that quick cancel culture from keyboard warriors who've got nothing better to do at the fucking time. And that just drives me mad. Let's talk about racial equality. I know people are getting very upset about, I had a football fan, and he tweeted on my Twitter feed, and he said the words, if our players take a knee, if our players have Black Lives Matter written on their shirt, I want a season ticket refund. And I wanted to answer the fan. He was 75 years old, and I wanted to talk through it with him. But I knew if I'd answered him on Twitter, he probably would have been cancelled. People would have come at him. People would have just called him a racist. People would have done everything to destroy his life for the things he said. Sometimes an older generation or people stuck in a certain time don't understand the real talking subjects of today and what things matter. And facts matter, and I've always said this. And I am one of those people that looks at it and goes, and I had this debate with my wife and my kids. I said, look, the 3 words Black Lives Matter are 3 words you look at and go, I agree. And there is no point in saying my life matters, or all lives matter, or white lives matter, or my kids' lives matter at this moment in time, because I've been in football now 15 years, and it would be remiss of me and ignorant of me to say that racism doesn't exist in football. It does. And I'm not talking about boardroom level. I'm not talking about football club level. I'm talking about, I've been at grounds. I've heard the chants. One of my own players, Jermaine Anderson, was exposed to some of it a few years ago. And I've seen things that are thrown on the pitch. I've seen things said to the players. It goes on. We're in the 21st century. It has no fucking place to go on anymore. And everyone saw what happened with the police brutality. There was a gentleman, obviously George Floyd. He was murdered. I've said before, I'm a law and order person. I stand with the police. I don't like what I'm seeing going on with the police and the amount of people who work for the police that have been vilified for one person's horrible actions. And I always take that route that I have friends who are police officers, and I've said this before. The police at the moment are under serious attack, and too many of them have died. But we did see George Floyd. He was murdered, and he was murdered by a police officer. And let's get those facts straight. It was a brutal, and it was a murder, and we all saw it on video. And this moment in time is highlighting the fact that we live in the 21st century, and racism unfortunately still exists. You could say, yes, it's not as bad as it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's an educational moment for us. in the three words right now, they do matter. And I have to say that with my hand on my heart. And everyone has to do better. And we all have to do better. And when we see somebody who's acting in that way, or is a racist football game, we've got to get rid of them. We've got to get them out of the stadium. It's a cancer. And we're the cure. And where we're not the cure is where we ignore it and allow it to go on. The same as if you run a business and 99% of your workforce is white. And you interview people and not enough black people apply for the jobs. And we've said this in football for a long time. You know, more and more coaches need to be involved in football who are, they call it BAME, B-A-M-E. And that's really important. And there's not enough people applying for jobs. The biggest problem in football is not the racism at boardroom level. It's that when you have a job that's available, out of 10 candidates, only one of them might be black. And there's only one black applicant because they probably feel they've got no chance of getting the job. And that perception has to change. And we have to do more to change it. And I always felt I did my bit. I've done it with former players, black players, where I have said, look, I think you'd be a great coach. I think you'd be a great manager. I've gone on record and I've said, Aaron McLean, for example, I think is a terrific young coach. And unfortunately, he lost his job. And that was nothing to do with the colour of his skin. That was to do, that moment in time, our manager had tough calls to make on his coaching staff, and he was the last in as a junior coach. So it made sense he was the first that would have to go. But I said to Aaron when I spoke to him, you're going to get a job in the championship. You need to get busy in the media. You're going to be a football manager. And I said that to him 3 years ago when I used to meet him for coffees and talk through his career. I have Gabby Zakwani, who's a former player, who's been on to me asking me, can he come in and do coaching for free? And I want Gabby to do that because I want to pay for his license. The license to become a football coach is so expensive, and that's another issue why a lot of former players don't go down the route. Particularly if they're black and they feel like they're already up against it, why would they invest £6,000, £7,000, £8,000 in a license? So at Peterborough, we have a system where we pay for young coaches' licenses, and when they get their first good job and they start earning good money, then they can pay it back. But we'll front the upfront cost of the license. And I do believe that in our game. We have to change it. We have to have more black managers and black coaches. But more than that, we have to get rid of what goes on in the stands. And then you go on to what goes on outside football stadiums. I'm not a black person. I can't walk in their shoes. I don't know what they live through every day in their life. So I understand the moment in time. I understand where we have to step to the side and go, you're absolutely right. We're in this with you. And now's the time for change. And that's where I stand in that. But I want to be very clear. I don't stand for any organisation. I stand for the three words. Because we all know what's been highlighted finally about the organisation. A lot of people in the UK didn't realise. And there were some brave people who came out and spoke about it, and fair play to them, because if they'd done it maybe 3 weeks ago, they probably would have been cancelled. And I don't stand for any organisation. I stand for those three words alone. And I'm going to do my bit. I think if everyone says to themselves, we're going to do our bit, we're going to make a change. And when I was younger, living in Ireland, I witnessed racism from a young age. And it was because my auntie and my mum's sister married a Jamaican gynecologist, and she moved to Jamaica. And her three children are all black. And they used to come and stay with us in Ireland in the 80s when I think I was like 10 years old. And my cousins were great fun. And they'd come over and stay, and we'd go out, whether we were going to the cinema, disco, or shop. I witnessed what went on. I witnessed what they went through. And all of them are successful in their own rights. They're all living their lives. They're all career successful people. But I understand what they went through every day, what I didn't go through. And I think that's where we have to stop and look in the mirror and go, you know, do our brothers and sisters, regardless of their colour, their race, their skin, do they get treated differently than us? And I guess the short answer is yes. And when we realise that, we all realise we have to do our bit. So I don't want to get too political. You know, this is more a football podcast, but I just want to give people my feelings on that. Just like I said to the Posh fan and posted that or whatever else. Look, I understand where you're coming from. And it's not necessarily about the three words. It's more about probably all the stuff you read about movements and Marxism and all of that. And I get that, but there's a better way to go about it. And that's a conversation we have to have instead of calling each other out publicly and trying to cancel or dock somebody. So I'm with that in our sport. And if our players want to take a knee, if they want to put something on their shirt, if they want my help, my assistance, sign me up. I'm 100% all in. It has to be eradicated. We have to do it. We're not going to do it through rioting or looting or through all the other stuff that you see going on. We're going to do it through intelligent planning. We're going to do it through love. We're going to do it through working together. And I think it's something that can be eradicated. It's not going to happen in a day or a month. Organizations like Kick It Out already do a phenomenal job. And I want to put my support behind them and do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't go on at my football club. And that's where I am with that. So that's where I'm going to leave it with politics. Look, in America where I live, it's horrible. You've got left, you've got right. Everyone in England wants to put it down to Donald Trump, and I'm not trying to talk in Donald Trump's favour. I don't care if Donald Duck gets elected in November. What I don't want to see is radical socialism coming into the country. You only get one version of it because of the way the media slants everything. But I'm telling you right now, it's not good in this country, and not all of that can be blamed, the blame game on Donald Trump's doorstep. This has gone on a lot longer than Donald Trump's been in power, and it's now been brought to the forefront. And unfortunately, it's heavily radicalized to the left over here with what's going on. And it's not so much about Republican or Democrats. So the next few months are going to be interesting. But the one thing we want to see is we want to see everyone treated the same. I've always said, treat everyone as you'd like to be treated. And that goes for trolls as well. If you troll me, I'm going to troll you back. And that's the way I handle it in social media. So enough about politics. I'm sorry if I bored you with this. I'm sorry if you find some of it not to your taste. I'm sorry if someone wants to take some headlines out of what I've just said and try and make me be the bad guy. Beware, I've got really good lawyers and I will come for you. I have love for all people. And you do me no harm, I do you no harm. But if I stand there and I hear something I don't like, particularly in a football game in future, I'll march over through a crowd of people and I'll probably get arrested for assault, because that has to stop, and that shit stops right now. And I think we all have to agree at that. We have to learn from that, and we have to go on. So love to all my brothers and sisters out there, no matter what race you are. And no matter what your beliefs are, I think we can do better, and now's the time to do better. And I think 2020 is definitely that year where we put a flag in the sand and go, it is time to do better. I'll be back after the break. I'm going to talk about family. I'm going to talk about 2021 and my hit list. Welcome back. Final segment. Bit of an update on my family. All good. Obviously we've been living our life here in Florida. We planned to go to Dubai. Dubai finally opened their gates. I think it was 7th of July now they're open. And my June booking was put back till then. So we're like, okay, we're going to get flights. There's no flights out of Orlando, but there's flights out of New York. I went ahead and booked the flights. You can do testing when you arrive in Dubai, because obviously they give you 96 hours if you do it here before you leave. We wouldn't have got testing done on time. So we were all on board, and then New York decided to quarantine all people who flew from Florida in for 14 days. Yep, fuck him, the guy who runs New York. So that put paid to my holiday plans, so we had to call time on that. So right now, really, there's nowhere to go holiday-wise from Florida, bar staying within America, because of coronavirus. So another nail in the coffin for 2020. No big family holiday for us. To be fair, my kids have taken it like, proper soldiers. They're soldiering on and, seeing their friends. They're in the pool every day. They're getting on with it. I've got cabin fever. This is the longest I've ever gone without traveling away on business. I'm itching to get over to the UK. I'm going to try and get over in August, quarantine for the 2 weeks, and then get into the whole football stuff for a couple of months. I'm itching to get back to work in some form. With the world going on the way it is at the moment, I can't see that happening until the end of the year properly. I still feel there's going to be a big fallout economically for a lot of people. There's going to be companies cutting people from their jobs. There's going to be people losing their homes. I think that's probably going to happen from November, December onwards. We'll see the real fallout. But from a family perspective, I couldn't have gone through the last 4 or 5 months without my family, without my missus. I'm still building my Lego every couple of days. And my missus has got me the new Lamborghini Lego model. So that's my new obsession. I'm working away. I'm writing a couple of books. I do a couple of chapters every week. Hoping to get them out. Probably it'll be next year, not the end of this year. Seeing my dad, we're having family barbecues. We're trying to live life as normally as possible. Then you turn on social media. Then you turn on the news. We're doing movie nights still. I have our movie bowl where we put in loads of classic 80s and 90s movies. So the recent ones that came out of the bowl were The Breakfast Club. My kids love that. The other night we watched The Usual Suspects, a true cinematic classic. And tomorrow night we'll be going into the bowl and the kids will pick out a movie. And we've got quite a few still in there. So that's what we're kind of doing as a family. We went out, was it the other night? We went to Hooters for some chicken wings. People who know Hooters think of obviously big tits and arses, but it's actually great for food, and it's a good family place, to be fair. It's like a kind of a pub bar restaurant. And we're just trying to keep the kids grounded. We're trying to get them out, as much as we can with their friends. My daughter went to Universal Studios the other day. They've done it really well. Universal Studios, you've got to wear your mask, the social distance. They've handled it really well out here in Orlando. So she went with 4 or 5 of her pals. I think she's got a few pals coming over today for a pool party. I'll barbecue for them. I'm just trying to keep sane, but the one thing I have done is I've written up my 2021 list. And I say to everyone out there who maybe has been furloughed, they're not at work, they're wondering what's happening, where to go. start laying your plans in place, because I'm one of those positive believers that, planning is good planning. And I've written down my 2021 list here. What have I got on here? I want to release 2 books. I want to start 2 new businesses. I want to make millions and millions of dollars. It's been too long since I made some serious dough. I want to buy some new toys. I want to make a pledge that anything I make in 2021, I want to give 10% of it away to cancer charities. That's near and dear to me because I lost my mom to cancer. So there's like 6 targets I've laid down on my hit list. I will enact all of those come January 2021. Hopefully this coronavirus will be long behind us and we're all getting on with living back to proper normal, because I hate the words, the new normal. It'd be great to hear what you and your families are up to. I get loads of emails off people who worried about their businesses, worried about their kids. Hopefully now, particularly in the UK, because you kind of opened your doors today, you are going to get your sense of normality back again. And I just want to get excited about the future, because I am that guy. I like to dream. I like to reach really high. I like to aim for the stars. And if I fall a little bit short, it's usually good for me, and I've done all right. I've always been a dreamer. And it's been a while since I've dreamt positively. And I want to get that mindset back again. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. So from my perspective, that's where I am. I'd love to know what everyone else's 2021 list is. I'm hoping the family get over to England for Christmas and this is all calmed down well before then, because usually we'd spend the summer in the UK, and I'd say it's probably really hit the kids not being in the UK for the usual kind of June and July. And we definitely missed that. And, we missed the culture. We missed going out to our favourite shops around Surrey and the restaurants we visit, and, seeing family over there. The one thing coronavirus is, it's kept us all so much apart, yet we probably feel closer than ever when we come back together. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast today. I hope I haven't bored you shitless. I've mixed it up there with some corona stuff, some football stuff, some politics, talking about my family. Obviously, I will keep it going. I've asked you to make donations. I've asked for sponsors. I enjoy doing it when I get into it. I've really enjoyed doing it in my office today. It's Saturday morning here in Florida. My wife's been dropping my daughter to the gym. Kids are in the pool outside, and I'm hunkered down in my office. I've got I did have the United game on at the moment now, but the Arsenal Wolves game on, and then I'm going to do some football budget planning for our new season. I'll be speaking to the gaffer later, and he'll be talking me through what he's doing with our players next week. And like I said, I want to get excited. I'll try not to watch the news this weekend. It's July 4th weekend, so I'll try and keep it family fun, watch some movies, eat plenty of food. The other thing on my list, I need to add to my list, is I need to lose 15 pounds. I'd say most of the weight I've put on in this whole coronavirus period has been from booze. I told you before, I've said it before, drinking way too much. We decided last week, we're not going to drink for 2 weeks. I come out of my office at 5:30 last night, and my wife hands me a beer. I just put my eyes up to heaven and I continue drinking. So it was one of them nights last night, and I dare say we'll be going, cold turkey and saying on Monday, that's it, no drinking for a couple of weeks while I add the pounds. So I need to lose some poundage, probably need to do 15 pounds, get in a healthier position, knock the fags on the head, cigarettes that is, and get on with planning for 2021. Let me know what you're all doing. Have a great July 4th weekend. Doesn't mean that much to you guys in the UK, but really it's your own independence this weekend from coronavirus. So go crazy and enjoy yourselves. Signing out from here, it's episode 11, The Hard Truth by Darren McAnthony, Football Purgatory episode. Let me know your views on it. Enjoy. Take care, everybody. We'll be back soon. Hopefully next week.